everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. This week I'm going to be working on one last summer type project before diving into fall sewing. And this week we are going back to some vintage style inspiration, and we are going to be putting together a 1950s inspired vintage summer dress. And it's going to be out of this wonderful plaid cotton fabric that I got while I was in the fabric district that I showed you guys in my haul from my LA fabrics haul. So if you haven't seen that video, I will link that down below because you can see all of the rest of the fabrics that I got while I was down there as well. But this one I earmarked right away for a nice summer dress because it is just a really nice, really lightweight cotton. I don't know if you can tell kind of how lightweight it is, but it's very fine, almost voile, just slightly thicker than voile. And I am going to be making this all with Vogue 8789. That is this pattern right here. Now, I have used this pattern before, and I thought that I had not used this pattern since I made this dress way back in, I think, 2011, so a really, really long time ago. And I do not often wear this dress for a few reasons, really. One, it's got this weird wide-shouldered thing where, it is a sleeveless dress. It's not narrow enough to turn it into a jumper dress, so you can't really wear a shirt underneath it because the sleeve kind of hits all the way out to here. And then also it's honestly just a little bit too big. It's a little bit too big around. The waist is just a little bit too low. And if you can't tell, this color looks atrocious on me. But I got it for $1 a yard, I think, on my first ever trip to the fabric district. And I made this dress out of it. And I do love with this pattern the ability to have that sort of V diagonal, really playing with the shape or the stripe of the pattern. In this case, we are going to be attempting to do that with plaid, so we're adding another extra element to that of trying to get that nice chevron look with plaid, which is definitely more difficult than doing it just with stripes. And again, I thought I had not used this pattern since then, but I went to go pull the pattern out of the envelope and I found this inside of it, which I did not have paper like this back in 2011 when I made that first dress. So I knew that there had to have been something else that I used with this pattern. And those of you who have been watching my channel for quite some time may already be shouting out the answer to me. But I didn't know what it was. I had to go through my closet and see what would it have made sense that I had something that used that sort of chevron stripe look in a pattern. And then I stumbled across my rainbow Mickey dress that I made back in, I think, 2021. So yeah, this is the same pattern, and I obviously altered the pattern to get this because this dress actually fits me great. The waist is in the right place. It's the right size around. The shoulders are narrow because I wear this one as a jumper dress. And frankly, this is a really great pattern, which means this is a really great pattern, which means I think I don't have to do a mock-up. Now, there were a couple of other changes that I made with this one. The skirt on the original and in the original pattern, it is straight panel. It's just a rectangle. When I went and I did this one, I made it slightly gored. So you can see that we get that cool chevron look, even with the seams on the skirt, which I think is really pretty and really works great in this rainbow stripe fabric. However, I don't know that it's going to work as great in the plaid, but I would like a skirt that is a little bit more flowy. So I think we're going to attempt to do that with this. I don't know if it's gonna work, but we're going to attempt it. And otherwise we just have gathered up at the waist there so that we get nice and full skirt into that bodice. The other change that I'm going to be making with this current version though, is I'm actually going to be adding a sleeve. This is not gonna be a jumper dress. I know, right? Now I'm still a little bit torn on exactly what kind of sleeve that I want to add because you all know, if you watch a lot of my videos, you know that I wear this dress that I'm wearing all the freaking time, right? So often. And frankly, I love the sleeves on here, but they are actually a little bit too large to be practical for this season to be able to wear this dress for longer than the 80s and 90 degrees that's coming up this week, even though we're in September. And I can't put a sweater over this large of a sleeve. So they're not going to be this big, but I think I do want a little bit of a puff. We'll see exactly how big the puff winds up being, but if you know anything about me, you know I love a puffed sleeve. So that's what we're going to be doing. We've got a good amount of this fabric, and again, I think I'm going to be brave and not even do a mock-up. Because the other thing about this dress is that even though it is designed as a jumper dress, this is actually the right shoulder width for me. I think, now that I'm looking at it compared to this one. You know what, I'll probably try on this dress one more time, double check that it's the right shoulder width, that I don't need to widen it any if I'm going to add a sleeve, because I think that we're spot on with this one. I think we're just a little shifted over with the dress I'm currently wearing. But yeah, I have really narrow shoulders, so that's something that I need to change about just about every commercial pattern, is to really significantly narrow the shoulders. And particularly on a pattern like this, it was supposed to have wide shoulders to begin with. That was just the style in the 1950s. You also see a lot of like dolman sleeve in the 1950s. They liked that really kind of wide shape with no seam. And yeah, I don't like that look on me at all. And it also really doesn't work for adding sleeves to it. So yeah, we're gonna be doing a few changes around, and we're gonna be playing with plaids today particularly. So if you are really curious about like how to match plaids, I think this is the video for you. Let's go ahead and we will dive into cutting. So yeah, just double checked the fit on this and the shoulders and everything. This fit is perfect. So I'm going to double check that the pattern still matches this, because I can't remember if I did any alterations to this after putting together like the paper version of the pattern. But if not, then this is perfect and I don't need to do a mock-up. So the first step in cutting this is to really figure out what direction you want this to be. And there's really no way to do that other than cut, because the plaid is very different going this way versus this way. So at first I cut this piece right here. This is the bodice front piece. And at first I cut this side right here, and I kind of put it up on the form and realized that the boldest stripe, this one right here, is going really the opposite direction of what you'd want to draw interest. So I decided to switch that around to pivot it 90 degrees. This side, by the way, is what the pattern basically says, which is to have the grain of the fabric running along the neckline like this. This is having the cross grain of the fabric running along the neckline, but frankly, that looks so much better. It's so much better visual interest having the boldest of the plaid parts running to make that chevron. And so yeah, I'm gonna go with this side. I'm gonna scrap that one entirely over there and recut a second one of this, recut the backs so that we're going cross grain with like where the grain is meant to be, you know, along the neckline, because I definitely prefer that pink stripe looking like that. I kind of have loosely pinned the dart here, literally just kind of getting the fabric out of the way. It will look quite a bit different there where the dart actually is, because I think it's a little bit more aligned like that being pinched out from the inside. But yeah, we're gonna go with this side right here. So let's talk a little about pattern matching, specifically plaid matching, and why when you're attempting something like this, you need to have so much extra fabric. Now, granted, I did kind of waste one corner of fabric by cutting one on the other direction. However, now that I've got this section right here, which I'm trying to match, I have to pay attention with this particular plaid to almost everything. Now, luckily, this plaid seems to be the same front and back, so at least that shouldn't be an issue, because I think that it is exactly the same weave on both sides. Hopefully I won't be surprised by that. But what we do have is a lot of direction everywhere else, because if you look at this fabric here, you can see like wide sort of greenish, wide pink over here, but the things that are going through them, they're not centered. Like this is a little bit more to this side. This in this blue is very not centered. Like we obviously have a thin part and then a thick part. And likewise over here, we have thin blue, thicker blue. And so we have to pay attention to all of that when we are trying to match this to go the other direction, because we want it to be exactly mirrored to our first piece. And what that means is I tried at first to line that up with down here, and it didn't fit on the fabric. Like it was going to wind up out over this area. So then I noticed, oh, well, I've got this like little triangle going on over here, and it seems like it's in the area that I need it to be for this corner. And that is true for this corner. But unfortunately, because I cut that first piece out up here, this part up here doesn't have fabric there because it would wind up being up here. So what I'm going to have to do with this piece is actually move it pretty significantly into the fabric and have a repeat either over here or probably over here. So I'm kind of gonna lose like a fair bit of yardage there. Now what I can do, I haven't cut the backs out yet, so I can probably put the backs on over here, or at least one of the backs over here, and at least like not completely waste that area. Also, I'm gonna have sleeves later. I don't know where that's gonna come in. Luckily, I do have quite a bit of this yardage. I wanna say about 7 yards, but to be honest, I don't remember. And the skirts, because I'm just kind of doing a gored skirt, the skirts are gonna take up a little less fabric and hopefully not be too terrible to match, but that is a later bridge for us to cross. The other difficulty with pattern matching a plaid, some of this can go down to like source of the material and some doesn't, but is the fact that this is actually not woven evenly. So like where I cut this out, which was, you know, basically right over there, this section is actually wider than this section of the repeat right here. Likewise, this part right here, that is also wider. This one also wider. And so with the combination of all of those being just like a row or two of the weave actually wider, as in more threads there, I can't really cut this here and match the pattern, even though it is a pattern match. Like I can start over here all I want, having matched this pattern, like right over here. And yet by the time I get over here, we're a ½ inch off, and that is pretty drastic. So in a situation like this, what I would recommend is really paying attention to right down here, because this is where those two pieces are going to come together. And so this is where you really want it to be even if that means moving this piece of your pattern, this piece right here, to somewhere else in the repeat, hoping that that will have matched the weave of how many rows there were within each color of the plaid. Well, I guess the other end of the fabric is not going to be the answer here, because, oh my gosh, look at how off this is. What the heck? Were they just like randomly weaving threads? I don't understand how it can be this far off in something that's supposed to be a pattern repeat. Like, wow. I mean, we are talking now over an inch, I think. By the time it gets just over here, over an inch. That is beyond. So not only do I have all of the exterior pieces cut out now, but I also have cut out the flat lining, which is a pink cotton sateen. This is like that Supima cotton that Joann's carried for a hot minute and then unfortunately stopped carrying. But anyway, that is all pinned in place all around. This is ready to be serged. I made sure to cut out this layer using the paper pattern as opposed to using this exterior, because I was kind of pulling and stretching in various ways this fabric just to make sure that the grain matched between like one side and the other, and I wanted to make sure that I hadn't thrown everything off. So luckily, even with cutting with the pattern, everything still matches up, and now I can go ahead and serge those and start assembling the bodice. I have just done the seams and the darts up here, so let's talk about how to get a perfectly matched seam, because frankly, I think I did a pretty darn good job on these seams here, but I didn't do it completely right the first time, because basically when I cut patterns, the biggest part is in the cutting. You need to make sure that you are cutting, like I was telling you before, you need to make sure that they are a mirror, but then you're gonna be probably a little bit off. So basically, I do my seam up like I would any normal seam with my normal seam allowance with the edges meeting. But that might not actually be the answer that you need. So I wound up, you can see like my stops and starts here, I wound up redoing little bits of the back seam here a couple of times. I wound up undoing the top and the bottom of the back seam here. And it's really very small tweaks, but I wound up having to slide this side off just a little bit. And basically when you're doing that, you go in and you find these like sort of notch points where an X comes together, that midpoint right there, and you want to match that up to where it is on the other side, because that will give you the right place even if your seam allowance isn't actually meeting up at the edge. Then just split your difference as far as like ½ inch from, you know, you're not from this edge, you're not from this edge, you're kind of in between. This one's pretty small, but you can see also like the bottom actually wound up not matching up on this, because if I wanted to match the plaid in here, I just had a little bit too much length right here. So I'm just gonna kind of cut that that off or really just put that into the seam when the skirt gets added. It'll be just a little bit more cut off on this side than it was on that side right there. But yeah, that's really how it works. You can see up here, my little overlap actually is on the other side that it sticks out a little farther. Sorry about my awful nail polish, by the way. But again, I just had to go back through and match up a couple of those kind of X points. So you can see even from the seam allowance how much nicer that match is now. It's nicer than it was before, I should say. The front was actually even more off. It was pretty glaringly obvious. At first I was going to be like, I don't have to redo the back, it's the back. But the front I knew I had to redo as soon as I did it. So you can see just how off this section is right here. I wound up taking out this whole section, but leaving the bottom and then leaving the whole top area. But over here, I just really needed to match up where my little cross X points were, and that led to a really lovely matched up pattern on the front. Obviously I still have to press all of my seams, but yeah, I'm really happy with how that pattern match looks right now. By the way, I do not care about matching up side seams, shoulder seams, etc. So this is the side seam, this is one of the shoulder seams. You can see they totally don't match up. If you were to attempt to do that, you would have to have even more fabric, and I just don't want to waste yards of fabric attempting to match up a seam that is under my arm anyway. Just a quick little try on here. It seems to fit basically perfectly, which is good, and it's what I expected considering I have made this pattern, what, like 3 years ago or whatever, and I had actually saved the pattern afterwards. So yeah, I don't think I need to make any tweaks. The one thing that I can't really see, I think it feels right, is the fit of the back, but I do want to take a closer look at that in the mirror. But otherwise, everything seems really good. I don't remember if I told you this or not. I know I showed you what the rainbow dress looked like on, and then I was like, oh yeah, it's perfect. Well, then I looked in the mirror and realized it wasn't actually perfect because the armscye was way too big. I made it as a jumper dress and I made it with a slightly larger armscye. So I did actually raise this about 3/4 of an inch, just around under the arm, and then a little bit, basically tapering it to about here and the same sort of place on the back, just to kind of fill that in a little bit. So this way I can go ahead and set sleeves. They're going to fit right. If your armscye is too large, when you go to set the sleeve, you're not going to be able to have that range of movement. Having the fabric actually go up closer into your armpit, not too close, you don't want to make it tight, but having it go up closer actually gives you more range of movement. And I have decided that I definitely do want to do some sort of a puff sleeve on this, just not a big puff sleeve. So I'm going to play around with a couple of sleeve mock-ups now, and I'm also going to use bias tape to just fold in the edge here, get that out of the way, and that way the neckline will be all finished already. By the way, there is no zipper or anything in this. I have done up the seams because it's just large enough where I can pull it on over my head. That's what I had done with the rainbow version of this as well. And actually, even the pink version doesn't have a zipper in it. I much prefer to avoid zippers if I can. So it tends to just be the kind of over-the-top dresses that are made out of a really non-stretch material. Think like my rainbow butterfly dress that I did a couple months ago. Those types of dresses, they get zippers in them. More to take the dress off. I don't usually use the zipper to put the dress on. I just use it to take it off. But yeah, these, because it's cotton and it has that little bit of give, I can just pull them on over my head, which is so much easier, both sewing and getting dressed. So I know that this combination of plaids is terrible, but I've decided to do a little bit of a mock-up here using my favorite sleeve pattern. This one right here, favorite puffed sleeve pattern. This is Simplicity 2325. It's my go-to puffed sleeve pattern, but it is a larger and a longer puff, which I knew because I figured I want to see what it looks like in the plaid. So I'm going to cut my mock-up out of the plaid, but I don't want to waste it. So I'm going to start big because I can always cut down smaller. And sure enough, I mean, obviously I didn't set this in, it's just literally on my arm right here, but it's a little long, and it is especially too long under the arm right here. I don't want all of this bulk under the arm. So what that means is that instead of having a flat bottom right here, what has to happen is that this bit has to curve up here and it shortens over here. I am going to shorten it overall as well, and I'm trying to decide right now whether I want to do that from the top or the bottom because I kind of like this blue plaid hitting me here a little bit center. So I want to play with it like in the mirror where it looks like where I want those stripes to be horizontally. I did cut this cross grain, by the way, because again, I like the cross grain stripes better. I did not want to put this on the bias because the bodice is already biased. So I want a little bit of contrast there. But yeah, I liked it on the cross grain, and it also was better like economically for cutting the sleeves out, because I do want to leave the bulk of the fabric remaining for the skirt, because basically everything that's not going to go in the sleeves, I'm going to put it into the skirt and have a nice full skirt. So yeah, I have to figure out where I want to shorten it, but it definitely needs to be shortened. I'm going to shorten this by at least 1 inch all the way around, and then probably like 2 inches underneath the arm, and we'll see what it looks like there. I do, however, I think I like the fullness. It might be a little too full. We'll see. Puff sleeve trial take 2. I shortened the entire top edge of the sleeve by 1 inch. Like I said I was going to. I needed to find somewhere where that was going to come out, and the top part was where it looked better, I felt like, with the stripes. And then I also took out 1 inch from the underarm portion of the like side. So like I was mentioning, that was coming out from here and then tapering to about here so that you get the full puff over on this side. And I think I'm pretty happy with how this is fitting. I'm going back and forth in my mind of like, do I want to make the entire thing 1/2 inch shorter? Because this is going to go into a band. That is my plan, not an elastic, because I just didn't kind of want that tighter feeling around my arm. So I'm going to put this into a really narrow band, probably about 3/4 of an inch wide once it's been all folded and everything. So that means it's just going to be a strip cut to basically the size of my bicep plus seam allowance, and it's going to be 2.5 inches wide, and then that will get folded in so that it winds up being 3/4 inch wide total. So yeah, I think I'm happy with this though. I can go ahead and cut out the other one. If I do wind up needing to shorten it, like as I'm putting the band on, I can do that, but I think this is going to be good. The band's going to kind of hold it in place so that the puff will stay out a little bit more. I am not lining this. This is going to be unlined because I want it nice, lightweight summer dress because it's 93 degrees today. And yeah, and then once I've got that cut out, the rest of the fabric can all get turned into the skirt. So I'll have a nice full skirt moment with this dress. So while I am like waiting and kind of trying to put the sleeves together, I have also decided to figure out how I'm going to be cutting the skirt. So what I've done here is I've done a little gather test. I've gathered up 1 yard of this fabric. And yes, I have turned this fabric on the cross grain as well, because again, I really like those bold pink stripes and I want those to be vertical and not horizontal. So I've just gathered up 1 yard of the fabric here, and then I was literally just pulling the gathers tighter and tighter, starting with like a 2-to-1 ratio, then a 3-to-1 ratio, then a 3.5, and finally to a 4-to-1 ratio. In other words, the 36 inches of fabric are gathered down into 9 inches, and I like it. This fabric is so light and breezy that I really feel like this density actually works really great. So that's what I'm gonna do for my waist measurement, is that I need 4 times my waist measurement to put together into the length of fabric that is getting gathered up around my waist. Now, I am again not doing a circle skirt with this. I am going cross grain, but I do want a little bit of flare. I don't want this to be just flat panel, as easy as that would make things. But yeah, I'm going to flare it out a little bit on each of the seams. So then that begs the question, how many panels am I actually going to do here? And so basically with the length of fabric that I have remaining with 4 panels, that gives me 30 inches extra that I can flare out to at the hem. But then I'm kind of trying to decide, okay, first off, is that actually enough? Maybe I want more flare than that. You know, you like a little bit of flare. One thing that I think I want to check is if I can kind of figure out on this dress how much wider the bottom is than the top. Now this is a 6-panel skirt. This is an Ishakti dress, but this is a 6-panel skirt and it flares a little, but like not a lot. I don't know that I want to do 6 panels, because although 6 panels does then mean that you can get your pockets on the side seam without having a front seam, though this one does have a front seam, but it means that you can do that because then you'd have one 2, 3, and the same in the back. A 3-panel skirt doesn't. I do a lot of 3-panel skirts. 3-panel skirts generally mean that your pockets wind up about here instead of here at the side seams. I've done enough of these that like they don't throw me terribly when you do these. You gotta be careful about a 5-panel skirt, because a 5-panel skirt generally means you wind up with your pockets back here, and I've done, I think, one of those, and that does throw you off. I think I did it on a gunny sex dress, and trying to figure out where the heck are my pockets? Oh, they're behind me. I don't recommend a 5-panel skirt unless you are zhuzhing things enough, which like doesn't really work anyway. I don't recommend a 5-panel skirt. I would keep with like 3 or 4 if you don't mind a front seam, or maybe you have like a button-up closure. 4 works great. Or a 6-panel skirt if you want to do that extra work of doing extra seams. And of course I am adding pockets in the side seams. That's why this is even a question of where those pockets end up. But adding pockets is never a question. You should always add pockets. It doesn't take that much extra work to add pockets, so don't skip it. Like it's not worth it in the long run. You will regret it if you don't add pockets. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and check out this dress and see just how much flow is down at the bottom, because it might actually mean maybe I shouldn't go for a 4 times gather. I didn't really realize that there would only be that 30 inches remaining if I do go for a 4 times gather, because I wasn't really thinking about doing a 4 times gather. I was trying to decide between 2 and 3, and 2 and 3 just didn't look dense enough. So yeah, I'm gonna do a little thinking about this and thinking about the dress and figure out just how much flare I need in this skirt, which I'm probably gonna make a 3-panel skirt because 6 panels just sounds like a lot of effort. So yeah, the flow on this dress, there's actually 78 inches more around the hem than there is that's going into the waist, and that's why you get this sort of shape right here, as you can see. And I do like that flow. I probably don't want to do that much less. So I think I am going to change things up and go for kind of a like a 3.25 ratio, because that's how much I need to have that difference, is like about 3.25 to 1, I think, gather ratio. I think even 3.5 is not going to be enough of a swing out, and 3, yeah, I don't know. So I think we're going to make it a slightly less gathered skirt. I mean, this one, for example, is actually not very gathered. It's only a little bit gathered, but we're going to make it slightly less gathered so that I have that room to flare it out more at the bottom, because that's how you get the nice like twirly skirts. And you know I love a twirly skirt. So if you've never made like a gathered sleeve into a cuff before, they go together almost exactly like a waistband, to be honest. You put right sides together with the cuff along the gathering, just like you would with a gathered skirt, and then you turn that right sides out. I don't generally press this seam, to be honest, unless it's really poofing up. This one's really not. I think it's laying pretty nicely. And then you go around and you press in the edge that's over here, like the outer edge, so you have a nice clean finish. And then you just take this up and you fold it and you pin it so that it's just past where the stitch line was, right over here. Basically you pin it like that. And I like to go in and make my pins go perpendicularly, so like it's going to face down this way. Then go back over to your machine once that's all pinned in place, and you're literally just going to stitch in the ditch right here. By putting your pins in perpendicularly, you can, I don't necessarily recommend it, but you can actually sew across your pins, which helps to keep this over where the ditch is. And otherwise you can also just take the pin head that's over here and pull that out really easily. But yeah, I'll show you what that looks like when it's done. And this is what it looks like all neatly folded up and finished. This is the inside, outside over here. I think it looks really, really nice. Some threads to be trimmed, of course, still. But yeah, I love that little puff sleeve. And actually the sleeves are now connected to the bodice as well. So they're all just set in there with their nice gathers, which means that the bodice is ready to have the bias trim around the neckline. And by say bias trim, I mean the bias tape that's going to fold that to the inside like that. I had thought about doing an actual trim up top as well, because you do see that on a bunch of like 50s outfits that they'll have some sort of a trim there. And I just didn't have anything that was in the stash that worked well for that. So we're just gonna leave it plain for now. If I want to add trim later, I can, but yeah, just plain for now. So we just need to finish that neckline, and then that can be attached to the skirt. And in fact, the skirt is assembled. I have it just kind of draped over the dress form here, but we do have our pockets over here. I've done a lot of videos where I talk about how to do pockets, so that's why I don't go into it at all here. We've got the pockets that are slightly forward from the side seam, so one there, one somewhere over here. I think, yep, there we go, right there. And then there's the center back seam in the back. I've run gathering stitches on the machine and pulled all of that up. So this is now ready to be attached to the bodice once I've done the binding on the bodice. And then we can talk about the hem down here, because right now it is just a raw edge. Here is the nicely bound neckline. And now it is time to go ahead and attach the skirt to the waist. So I was really hoping to wear this tomorrow. I just attached the skirt onto here, but I don't know if you can tell, it's too low in the waist for me somehow. It's also somehow too wide in the shoulders. I don't know how this happened because it was fine before. Honestly, it almost feels like it is somehow too long in the shoulders, but that I can't fix. I've already bound everything. I can set the sleeves up a little bit higher. I can reset the waist. The front, the very front here, it's significantly low. Like I think that's almost an inch. Over here at the sides, I think it's about a ½ inch. The back actually seems spot on. I have no idea how these things happen. But yeah, I need to reset this and honestly probably reset these. How did they get so wide? My shoulder divot is here. So that needs to come up at least ½ inch, maybe even more. It's really cute, but it's really disappointing. So I think I am finally happy with the fit of this. I lifted up the whole waistband, well, the whole front and sides of the waist significantly, like I think over an inch by the time it got to the center, and like ½ inch. Yeah, it was just a lot. I also lifted up the shoulder seams. Honestly, I think I could have gone more. They still seem just the hairiest bit wide, but I think they'll be okay. Like I don't think they're gonna bother me where they're at this point. I also actually did multiple adjustments to the darts, and to be honest, I'm still not sure that I'm happy with them. I have been just fighting with darts in the last, like, at this point, I feel like year or two. I don't know what's going on. It's like all of my ability to have good darts that I used to have in my sewing, gone. I don't know what's been going on. And these are darts that like, they fit exactly fine on the rainbow one. And maybe it is just that like, I don't know, I've worn it a lot, or maybe the pattern is so busy that I don't notice if they're bad, or I literally have no idea why that dress seems to have perfectly fine darts and this one is still bothering me. But basically, at first the darts were coming up way too high. They were like here. So then I dropped them down a little and they were weird and like sticking out weirdly. So I dropped them out more and really tried to just finely taper it. So it's really like a curve instead of, a lot of times like when you look at a dart in a pattern, it's very, very triangular and very pointy, the shape of the dart. And what you really want is like a curve so that it almost comes like this, like so that it is this against, you know, the fold right here. And so I've really tried to do that and I feel like it is still not great. And now what I'm getting is kind of points sticking out below because I feel like the darts aren't going high enough up to really fit correctly. And yes, I know that part of the problem is that when you look at a lot of like darted bodices like this on a 50s dress pattern, they had different bra shapes than we do now. I'm wearing a modern bra shape, which is very round. A 50s bra is very bullet. So it has that point, so you want the point in the dart. But yeah, I don't know how to fix this. It's just bugging the heck out of me. But it is bugging me less now than it was 2 edits ago on trying to fix this. So yeah, I think maybe that this dress is done. We'll see if I need to make more changes on this. I honestly don't know, but I'm not going to do like a full reveal for you because I A, don't have time, and B, it's just kind of an easy summer dress that has turned into not quite an easy project as I would have liked, considering I had to make all these tweaks. But let's go take a look at the full length of this dress. yeah, that is the finished dress. Honestly, I do really like it, despite kind of the headaches that it caused me in the final bits of making it. I think it is so comfy. Like, talk about easy breezy. It is just so lightweight. I really do like how light these sleeves are too. I think that this is a really great summer dress. It just feels very kind of effortless, which is really, really nice for a summer dress. This fabric is like, again, it's wonderfully light, but one thing that I did notice as I was going through and making this, and actually, look at that, there's one right here. I went to go pull this thread thinking it was a fuzz, but actually there's a lot of kind of issues on this fabric that I've noticed. Like, for example, this thread, this is actually just like attached in there, and I'm just gonna have to kind of trim that off. Those are happening all over this fabric, and there were a couple of places too where there were like things kind of stuck into the weave. One was like a little bit of fuzz, one was a little tiny piece of wood. What? Yeah, and the one that had the wood, I think it was, actually kind of left a hole in the fabric that luckily I was able to cut it carefully enough that it wound up on the turned in portion of the hem. So you can see this is the hole left behind by the wood chip that had been woven into this fabric. So I guess that's what happens when you buy like really cheap cotton from the fabric district. It is probably not woven well. But again, it is so lightweight. I wish that I could find more of this type of fabric locally, just, you know, maybe woven better. But it's really, really a gorgeous, light, kind of wool type fabric. And I think that this is going to be a great summer dress, despite the fact that now, knock on wood, all of our summer weather is actually done as of the ending of this video. It finished off about 2 days ago. So yeah, I'm gonna wear this anyway because I'm in rehearsal and I need nice breezy dresses for rehearsal for the show until we start Tech Week this next week, which I think is going to be the week that you are watching this video. Will be the week we start Tech Week. So I will leave all of the information for Sister Act the musical at Tacoma Musical Playhouse. If any of you are local to the Tacoma, Seattle area and you want to come see the show, all of that information is linked down in the description. And that is going to be it for me today. We will get back to historical costuming soon. My next project is a historical costume. It's going to be that chemise a la reine, or that hopefully I can have enough fabric to make a chemise a la reine with the purple fabric that I showed you guys a few weeks ago. And that video will be coming out probably in 2 weeks. There'll be a different video, not sewing related, but historical costuming related, that comes out next week. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, usually with sewing vlogs out on Tuesdays and sometimes additional sewing or costuming related content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Jean, Dan, and Kim. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!